Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2024. Can you hear me? Just give me a yes, a no. Yeah, people are okay. Great. I've been thinking about how I'm feeling, and it seems very appropriate today for us to take a little bit of time to focus inside, and then some time to also focus our attention on how to send our attention outside in a way that's nourishing for us. So I'd like to begin, Andrew, if you could bring up the source sheet. I'd like to begin with 4 lines that may be familiar to some of you. It's a metta practice for compassion. And this melody came to me at the IJS Clergy Leadership Program. So I'm going to sing it to you in the first person. And I invite you to let it in, take it in. The melody is pretty simple. Sing it for yourself. I'll sing it through at least a couple of times. And then perhaps we may bring it out to others at some point during our time together today. So for this first, I invite you to breathe. Open your heart. And receive. May I be safe. May I be happy. May my body be strong. May my life unfold with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May my body be strong. May my life unfold with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May my body be strong. May my life unfold with ease. So I know that so many of us are feeling so much challenge, discomfort, pain, fear, rage, uncertainty, confusion about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. And I found an article in the New York Times just a couple of days ago that really spoke to me about something that could be meaningful for us. So I'll ask Andrew if you can bring back the source sheet. So this article was written by Adam Grant, and he wrote it specifically for the response that people are having regarding Israel and Gaza. And the title of his article, that numbness you're feeling, there's a word for it. I have the link here. I invite you to read the article. It's meaningful. There are 2 particular pieces that Adam Grant teases out that I think could be really helpful for us right now. And he talks about the distinction between empathy and compassion. He says that empathic distress is hurting for others while feeling unable to help. And we may be feeling that right now. We may not be feeling that right now. We may simply be feeling overloaded by pain. I love the teasing out of this because I think that there is the capacity here for giving us some actions that can be helpful. He says that caring is not costly. What drains us is not merely witnessing others' pain, but feeling incapable of alleviating it. And that in times of anguish, empathy, he says, is a recipe for more distress and can even lead to depression. He says what we need instead is compassion. So he says that empathy is absorbing other people's emotions, whereas compassion is focusing our action on the emotions and experience of other people and offering comfort. Now, that may be very difficult to do for the large body that is Gaza and Israel right now. We may know individuals there. We may know individuals here. So we can look for ways to bring our compassion outward. And when I began to look at this week's Torah portion, and I began to read Parashat, read I don't know how many hundreds of times, I had a different response to it this reading. So Andrew, if you would scroll down just a little bit. Thank you. וימררו את חייהם בעבודה קשה בחומר ובלבנים בשדה בפרך. ויאמר בילדיכן את העבריות וראיתן את האבנים אם בן הוא בהמיתן אותו. So this verse is telling us that the king of Egypt and the taskmasters embittered the lives of the Israelites with harsh labor at mortar and bricks. We know this story, all kinds of tasks in the field. And the king then said to Shiphrah and Puah, after asking them to be midwives, when you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the birth stool. If it's a boy, kill him. This hit me in a way that it has never hit me before, and I couldn't read anymore. I had to put the book down. And I thought about compassion and empathy, and I picked the book back up another day. And I looked at what we read about Pharaoh's daughter. V'tiftach v'tirehu et hayeled, v'hinei na'ar bocheh, v'atmachol alav, v'atomer me'aldei ha'ivrim zeh. So Pharaoh's daughter opens this basket that she pulls out from the Nile, and she sees the child, a boy, crying. She had compassion for it and said, this must be a Hebrew child. These two texts, the first is a text about bitterness, volatility, hatred, fear. There's no room. There's no room for heart. It's all about destruction. And the second text, Pharaoh's daughter, in the middle of this entire situation in Egypt and with the Israelites, with her father being the one who's calling the shots, she finds her compassion. So I invite for us to use this as a guide today as we go into practice. There's one more text that I'd like to share. If you'd scroll just a little bit, Andrew. And this is a text that Rabbi Joshua Haberman recounts with reference to Dr. Carl Menninger, prominent psychiatrist, founder of the Menninger Clinic. When one of his students asked what he would do if he felt a nervous breakdown coming on, he said, go across the street and help another person. So we'll move into today's practice. And where we will bring our attention first is right here, right here. And as we get a sense of right here, we'll look at the distinction between empathy and compassion and see if we can do a little healing this way, which can offer a little healing this way. I invite you to uncross your legs unless you're sitting on a cushion. Allow your feet to feel themselves on the floor, on the ground. Take a nice exhale. And notice, are you holding on to feelings right now? Feelings about things you might not be able to fix. hurt you cannot seem to heal. Overwhelmed by images and news posts. As you breathe, allow the energy to flow down, perhaps from your head or your neck or your shoulders or your heart, wherever you feel caught. Breathe in and allow that energy to flow down, down, down through your torso, pelvis, through your legs, out through your feet, allowing the Creator's earth to hold you, to hold your wound, to hold your brokenness. Or any other experience you may be having right now. And notice what a good job the earth does in taking care of us. Continue to allow that energy to drain down. As you inhale, breathing in fresh life, fresh light. And with each inhale, noticing how we can replenish even the most vulnerable, broken, hurting places. By breathing in and breathing out. Let's take the next little bit of time to continue breathing in fresh, juicy, vibrant life. And breathing out anything that is holding us captive. With loss, harm, instability. We'll take some quiet time to simply allow this process to occur. And if you come into something that feels so tender, that you can barely even imagine opening it. See if you can let that drain as well, and let light fill you up, even there. Notice this gift of compassion that you've been giving yourself, allowing yourself to let all of the pain wash through you, wash down, and allowing yourself to fill yourself up with joy, brightness, and light. I'll close with the same melody, the first time in the first person for ourselves, the second time in the second person for you to see who you might want to offer these blessings to. May I be safe. May I be happy. May my body be strong. May my life unfold with ease. And a breath. May you be safe. May you be happy. May your body be strong. May your life unfold with ease. Blessings for wholeness and healing.
Thank you so much, Robin. Beautiful, beautiful teaching and really a needed practice. Thank you so much. And we seal it each, as we do each day, friends, offering an opportunity for those in mourning, observing Garrett sites to recite the mourner's Kaddish. If you're not reciting Kaddish, please stay present for those who are and offer your compassionate support as we've learned today. And if you'd like to put the name or names of those you're honoring by reciting Kaddish, you can do so now. You can put them in after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Andrew Schumann for putting the words on the screen. And if you are reciting the Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit. And you can unmute this time. Yitgadal, Gadash, Shemei Rabbah, Almad, Amen. Amen. And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks to our teacher today, Rabbi Robin Damsky of Limitless Judaism. Andrew, if you don't mind, if you can put the link to Robin's website in the link, you can encourage everyone to sign up and check out Robin's offerings or sign up for her newsletter, as I have. And you're welcome, as always, to stay on for conversation about today's teaching or just share reflections on the practice or to connect with each other. Or if you'd like, just to continue to sit if you're in a place where you'd like to use the container of this time and space. Thanks to Andrew for holding our space, as always, beautifully. And if you have a question for Robin, as always, please preface it by writing question in caps. It makes it a little bit easier to keep an eye on the questions. And feel free also just to share reflections. Robin, thank you so much especially for, well, it's good to have you back. Welcome back. And thank you for bringing us that insight about this distinction between empathy and compassion, what is it? Empathy distress? Is that the phrase?
I think it's empathic distress. Yes.
Empathic distress. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. We hear a lot about compassion fatigue also, right? So I guess I wanted to invite you to reflect, if you would, on how you understand that phrase, since it sounded like what he was suggesting was that empathy in and of itself, just feeling others' pain with the sense of not being able to respond to it or do anything, creates this distress, which I for one definitely feel, and it's very helpful to have a term that says, "Oh, that's what's happening here." It's leading to depression, to despair. It's draining energy rather
Yes.
than restoring energy, which I think is the
Yes.
key here, right? You were leading us to this in the practice that was about noticing that the energy is leaking away, and trying to find a way to close that loop, as it were. And compassion is, as in the text in the week's parsha of Pharaoh's daughter responding to seeing the baby floating in the water and acting, is an act of compassion. Anyway, so how do you understand those phrases, compassion, fatigue versus empathic distress? We might be
It's
having both.
interesting.
We might be having both.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Adam Grant actually addresses that in the article.
Hmm.
And he says that this kind of experience that we're having is often called compassion fatigue, but there's some doctors out there now who are teasing the two of these out and saying that if we are actually coming from compassion, that we are not creating fatigue. It is when we are hurting in a way that we think, any donation we make isn't going to make a difference, or any rally we attend, or any, petition we sign, or no matter what gift we may be able to manage, that it's not really going to make any difference, or not going to make any substantive amount of difference. That's where the depletion comes in. And I love the text of Carl Menninger. It's something that I learned from a friend of mine that I co-authored a book with called Find, Fulfill, Flourish. He's a psychotherapist, and he taught me this teaching of Dr. Carl Menninger, that we can offer somebody grace when we are in a bad place, and it'll completely shift our own energy. And I think that there's a difference between being over compassionate and being over committed. So we could, in our compassion, want to do too much and exhaust ourselves. I think, though, if we're coming from a really whole place of compassion, we have an awareness of, I need to breathe right now. And there is that circle and that cycle that I give out and I refresh, and I give out and I regenerate. So if we can be cognizant of that cycle, and say, okay, time to nap, time to stop, time to pull in, time to whatever, and then the reservoir can fill up,
Right.
then we can be in a position to offer that out again.
Yeah, so it kind of seems like that Menninger quote, which is directed towards others and should be, but you're suggesting, and I think it's probably true, can also be directed towards ourselves, that we're picking up we're noticing, I'm feeling paralyzed in some way, but there actually is always something I can do, whether it's for others or for myself, right? That it elicits something.
Right. And I think that perhaps something that is important and helpful for us is to pay attention to where our energy is. Because I know for myself, I can get literally bottled up. All that hurt, all that pain, all that uncertainty. And then I don't function as well as I would like to or could. So
Mm-hmm.
if I can allow that to just go down. And what I didn't say, which I do want to very clearly presence, is that sometimes in that opening there's emotion. There may be
Mm-hmm.
tears. There may be like a heaving of a sigh or a breath.
Mm-hmm.
To recognize that, and that's acceptable. That's okay. That we are
Mm-hmm.
letting all that stopped up energy flow. And as
Mm-hmm.
we let that drain down, we now open up a space where new light can come and fill us up.
Yeah. There's a question that came in from Jill. Actually, was just came into me, not to the whole
Mhm.
group, but I'll
Yeah.
share it because I think it's also a good question. Jill wrote, "How do we reconcile desire to be compassionate and also to stand firm in?" And she wrote, "Never again." How do we reconcile desire to be compassionate and also stand firm in never again? Which I'm interpreting as the question. The question as, how do we stay compassionate, open-hearted, and have strong boundaries at the same time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have fire ants and I grow food. So this is just a very silly little comparison that, where's the boundary?
Hmm.
And the boundary is something that will perhaps float
Hmm.
and change for each of us.
Hmm.
And to give ourselves enough compassion to say, wow, right now, this boundary right here about never again is so strong. I need to be right here, right now.
Right.
And perhaps in 5 minutes or in an hour or tomorrow, where your being is like, just vibrating with that sense of compassion. And where can I be a support to somebody?
Right.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And we learn in Torah that we hold conflicting truths simultaneously. So it's like a dance, I think.
Yeah. I think the challenge of, these two qualities, and it would occur to me that there are, it's almost like, native words for snow, that we have so many words for compassion in our tradition.
Mm.
And I want to get to that in a minute, the
Yeah,
particular word that's used in that
right, right,
verse.
right.
So let's get to that in a second. But the spiritual practice of holding a boundary, of the never, Jill's question of never again, which I understand is like just standing firm, right, against bigotry, against hatred, or whatever. How do we do that and stay compassionate at the same time? How do we integrate or synthesize that and have? I think we often have this sense of binary of, we either have that boundary and then we have compassion over here, but actually I think what we're striving to do is infuse that boundary with compassion, and still have a
Exactly.
strong boundary. That doesn't
Exactly.
mean, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, the word, because the phrase
Amal.
in the chamol, yeah, which
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
people may recognize this too, because when the piece of liturgy people may be familiar with, the modeh or modah ani in the morning, is traditional to basically thank God every morning for God's chemla, which is the same root. And Meg wrote, Eitz Chaim, the Eitz Chaim, I guess it's a JPS translation, translates it as pity, that Pharaoh's daughter had pity on the child. And it's so interesting, it's interesting that the word, uh, I know it's a beautiful word, that it's not so easy to translate. And it could have a number of different connotations.
Yeah, so I appreciate you calling attention to that. And there's also Chemla in the Ahava Rabbah and
Mm-hmm.
Hamol Aleinu in the High Holiday Liturgy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I looked also and found a translation that said pity, and it just, yeah, no, it didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
Pity is not a word that I feel very closely connected with, and that may be
Mm-hmm.
different for different folks here, which is completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not an emotion that I think is useful for me. Compassion, however, is an emotion that is useful for me, that I can say, and I can reach out my hand, or I can touch, or I can offer a meal, or whatever it takes. Pity, to me, I don't feel that same association with an action.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I looked this up in Gesenius in BDB because I really wanted to know, is this
Yes.
really pity? And when I saw
Right.
compassion, I thought, okay, we're good. And I rendered it as compassion intentionally.
Yeah. I'm actually taking a look at the BDB,
Yeah,
and it says with the root, and people may know that if every Hebrew word has a shoresh, a root that has a range of connotations, and all the words are permutations of that root. They have it as bear or become responsible or spare, have compassion, and then chemla is translated as compassion or mercy. And it's just interesting. The other thing that it struck me about it, Robin, was I was thinking it's interesting that it says that first, and then she says this must be a Hebrew baby. It
right.
does that. It starts with she doesn't notice the identity. First, she notices it's just a baby, and that elicits that compassion. And
Mhm.
then, it's only secondary that she begins to say, oh, maybe this is why this baby is here, right?
Yes.
So I was very touched by that. I thought it's a universal instinct there that
Mm.
is reflected.
Yeah.
And if you flipped it around, it would feel different a little bit to me. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
here's a
interesting.
Hebrew baby, and then she had compassion on it, which would be
That's
great
very
too.
interesting.
That'd be great
Yeah.
too. But it starts
Yeah.
with the chemla. So I really love that. What you
Yeah.
brought there.
Yeah. And the fact that the text continues, I really looked into this a little closely. That Miriam is there and she says, I've got a wet nurse. Would you like me to, have the baby nourished? And then it
Hmm.
says that Moses was returned when he was grown.
Hmm.
And I always thought when he was weaned, but I actually looked and it says when he was grown.
Hmm.
And and Pharaoh's daughter adopted him. So even after all this time, whether it was 5 years or 17 years, she
Hmm.
still chose to adopt him and be his mother, in spite of the
Hmm.
fact that she really didn't have to at this point.
Right.
Um, so even if it was one of those, oh, baby in the water, oh, Hebrew, she had enough compassion to want to care for him and
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah. Thinking about how to notice this, how we actually notice it. For me, I think it's noticing like there's something in the heart that happens that touches the heart
Yes.
and connects. We use different words to translate it, but there's like there is a reaction, or I would say a response to the witnessing pain
Mhm.
that elicits a response in some
Yeah.
way. And so the question is, how do we not shut ourselves off to that pain, even while making discernments and distinctions and taking a stand, and maybe even prioritizing some pain over others' pain too, which is another
Yes,
topic. We haven't even
which
gotten to
is
that
which
yet,
is a
right?
whole other ball of
Right,
wax.
right.
I think that for self-care, for us to
Mm-hmm.
realize what our capacity is, I think is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe we don't do enough of that. I don't know that I do enough of that. And this article was helpful for me in teasing that out. And to be conscious of saying, I'm feeling pain for what I just read in the news or this video that somebody just shared. And where can I be effective? It may not be, maybe there's a response that I want to make to that post, and maybe that's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm effective. Or maybe where I'm effective is turning my compassion to something that may not be over there, but
Mm-hmm.
it may be over here. And it may
Mm-hmm.
be that compassionate behavior, just like that rock we throw in the water, that has the capacity to ripple and ripple and ripple and change the cellular nature of the way we be in the world as humans.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. Beautiful. As always, Robin, really just delightful. It was beautiful teaching and wonderful practice and so needed. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Good to have you back. And
Good to be
Andrew,
here.
thank you so much, Andrew. And Andrew's headed off for some time off. So Andrew, I want to wish you a wonderful time. And we'll see you when you get back. And everyone else, we hope to see you tomorrow to sit into
Bef-
Shabbat. Oh yeah, Robin, go.
Apologize for interrupting. Before we go, there was a question about the link to the article. It's
Oh,
on the sheet. It's on the
right,
source sheet. So if you click open the source sheet, you'll find it. Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks again, Robin. Okay,
Definitely,
everybody.
and lots of healing.
Amen. See you tomorrow.